Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. This is Brandon from Free State, Colorado, and I hope you're doing well. I want to talk to you a little bit about one of the biggest political stories that's not getting a lot of coverage right now, and it has some big implications. I've been an integral part in a lot of this over the last few years, so I just really want to bring this up to you. And I know it might not be the most interesting thing to everybody who watches my videos normally, but it is so important and it has implications for our state legislature, our congressional District 8 representative in Congress, and some other things as well. So just wanted to bring this up, talk about it. But if you may have heard about this pledge, they call it the Liberty Pledge, formulated between the Colorado Republican Party initially and the Libertarian Party of Colorado. The idea there is, if you don't know, is that, for so often, a lot of voters will vote for a libertarian if they're on the ballot. Maybe they'd vote for the Republican, but libertarians are often considered spoilers, right? Because you're like, okay, well, I'm a pro liberty voter and I don't necessarily know the Republican that well. I might just vote for the libertarian. And it's definitely meant some people didn't get elected who otherwise would have without a libertarian on the race, which I'll show you here in a minute. So the Libertarian Party came up with this idea years ago saying, hey, if you're a pro-liberty candidate, if you believe in liberty and freedom, we agree on these set of principles, these ideas, these policy positions, then we won't run a libertarian candidate against you because, for one, we know we can't win, right? We know we can't win as libertarians. So our next best thing is to do everything we can to ensure the most pro-liberty candidate wins, right? I think that makes sense. I think there's a lot of reasons why that's a good thing, and it had a huge impact here this last year, which I'm going to get into. But just to give you an idea, I have links, of course, at freestatecolorado.com as always, but you can read the State Candidate Pledge for Liberty. It talks about standing up for Tabor, our taxpayers' Bill of Rights, the Second Amendment, opposing taxes, protecting parental rights, all of those types of things. Even a local pledge and a congressional pledge. A lot of those things have been extremely important. Now, why does this matter? Why does this matter? Because we have in Colorado a new Libertarian Party chair, a new Libertarian Party board that doesn't necessarily like the idea of the pledge. And, I want to be kind. I want to be helpful to them, hopefully, and they can learn from this video. I'm really hoping that the pledge has been beneficial to the Libertarian Party of Colorado. It's been beneficial to liberty in general, and the pledge is why we're going to have a free state one day. One of the tools in our toolboxes at the very least. So, I mean, let's talk about the Libertarian Party of Colorado, right? Now, I know most people don't really like third parties that much. They see them as kind of a waste. And I understand that. But a lot of us believe in principle, right? I'm a registered libertarian because I believe in the platform. I believe in the policy positions. But I also want to achieve liberty. I want to achieve a free state. That's why I've been working so hard doing what I'm doing with Free State Colorado, right? So what is the goal of the Libertarian Party of Colorado? What is their ultimate goal? Well, we can take a look. There's a state party platform. All the political parties have a platform. And if you believe in liberty and freedom, you probably love what the Libertarian Party platform says here. Just give you a few excerpts. As libertarians, we seek a world of liberty, a world in which all individuals are sovereign over their own lives, and no one is forced to sacrifice his or her values for the benefit of others. We believe that respect for individual rights is the essential precondition for a free and prosperous world, that force and fraud must be banished from human relationships, and that only through freedom can peace and prosperity be realized. Great stuff, right? The statement of principles is awesome. I love this line here. We, the members of the Libertarian Party, challenge the cult of the omnipotent state and defend the rights of individuals. I think that's huge, right? We want to see freedom. Implementation. We support any measure that actually reduces and does not increase illegitimate government action or violation of the rights of individuals, as put forth in our preamble in the Statement of Principles, while recognizing that change often takes the form of increments and transitions. The policies and the planks that follow are to be undertaken as quickly as possible. Then it goes through some of the different principles, some of the different policies, some of the different things that Libertarian Party members would like to see done. And I think that's great. I think there's a lot of value there. And I think it's important. So that's the goal, right? The goal is to support, quote, any measure that actually reduces and does not increase illegitimate governmental action or violation of the rights of the individual. Awesome. So how do we do that, right? What do we do about it? How do we make it happen? I mean, the reality is we know libertarians aren't going to win elections, right? I lost my race here for city council. We had another libertarian, a good friend of mine, who lost her school board race. We haven't had anything close to a victory for any third party candidate, and the Libertarian Party is the biggest, but we haven't had anything close to that ever. I mean, that's just the reality of it, folks. Unless something changes dramatically with the electoral system, we're not going to see a third party. We're not going to see a libertarian win the race. However, I think there's still things we can do, right? That's the big question. So now what? Now what? Now, what do you do if you're a libertarian, if you're a pro liberty minded, free thinking Coloradan who wants to see liberty increased in our state? Well, let's take a look at what the stakes are, right? And if you've been following my work at Free State Colorado, you know I do a legislative live stream every week during the legislative session talking about all the horrible things that they're trying to do to us to violate our rights. And every year I do a little legislative recap and I present this at Denver Liberty on the Rocks. It's a blast. I had 100 slides this year talking about some of the bills, talking about some of the big stories of the state legislature, and really explaining a lot of the stuff that happened, some of the good bills that could have passed. Some of the bad bills, of course, are what we want to look at right now. You can take a look at this at Free State Colorado if you'd like, but just talking about some of the economic ignorance we've seen. You know, a $34 million tax credit to bring the Sundance Film Festival to Boulder. It's a proof that Jared Polis is no libertarian, right? This horrible bill from Yarazoke prohibiting price gouging in sales of necessities. Insane. And trying to control the prices of things, government price controls. No, dedicated to disaster is what that is. Jared Polis did sign a law prohibiting new liquor license drugstores. Gosh, I mean, isn't as small as that is to allow more liquor licenses. Nope. Jared Polis doesn't like that. There was online marketplace surveillance. So they can spy on people's online records a little easier. Trying to push rideshare companies out of Colorado. Jared Polis did veto that one, thankfully. But nonetheless, we see what kind of passed here. This would basically shut down a lot of these rideshare companies in Colorado. This is what our state legislature wants to do. Put forced unionization on Colorado workers. Go into detail there, but you can just see all the bad stuff that the state government, our state Democratic majority, has done. And yes, it is the Democratic majority that is inflicting this pain on the people of Colorado, going after gun shows, making it nearly impossible. The worst firearms ban we've seen in Colorado history, absolutely terrible. Making it illegal for under 21-year-olds to buy ammunition here in Colorado, creating the gun store Gestapo, where we're going to have the armed Department of Revenue employees making sure all these gun stores are licensed and under control and are not selling magazines with more than 15 rounds capability. All this crazy stuff. We did see them try to limit our ability to have a voice on the state ballot measures, going after Colorado Open Records Act. All this bad stuff, trying to sue to overturn Tabor, our taxpayers' Bill of Rights. I mean, that's the reality of it, folks. We have some serious issues. Jared Polis got a $4 million slush fund this year. So, I mean, the list goes on, right? And I don't really want to get into too much of that. But the fact is, the Colorado Democratic majority is a disaster for liberty. If you believe in liberty and freedom, you don't want to see the Colorado Democrats have a majority anymore. That's ultimately it. That leaves us with one option, folks, right? I think it's imperative that something is done to increase liberty in Colorado, especially after looking at all those bills, tracking what's been going on in our state. And you know this if you watch my videos. So this is the big question, right? Libertarian Party board, if you can answer this question, then please do. But how can libertarians influence what's happening in the state legislature? That's what needs to happen ultimately, right? And I think I've done a great job. Michael Vance, a friend of mine, we've done a good job of getting people organized. Natalie Metton showing up down there. She's a rock star. She's taught me a lot. We have some incredible individuals to get down to the state capitol and testify. But ultimately, we know these battles are won at the ballot box, not in the state legislature. As Ken DeGraff likes to say, rightly so. So I say, this is the idea here, right? This is the idea behind the pledge. The LPCO can use their power as a spoiler to leverage Republicans to support pro-liberty policy. There you go. You can use your power. The political party really only has one trick up its sleeve, and that's to get people on the ballot to provide ballot access. Well, you can say, if we control who's on the ballot as a party, well, what if we use that power to influence the policies that we're seeing in the state capitol, and really leverage Republicans to make sure they're supporting pro-liberty positions, right? So look at this. This is 2022 before the pledge, right? 2022, Ryan Gonzalez lost. You had Kyle Moore, a libertarian running, who quote unquote spoiled his race. You had Dan Woog lose to Jennifer Parenti, who was a disaster for Colorado, because Joe Johnson ran as well. So, I mean, here's two examples. The biggest one, of course, was Barbara Kirkmeyer running for Congress, losing by a thin margin, where you had Richard Ward, the libertarian candidate, getting a lot more votes. Now, sure, not every single one of those votes would have went to the Republican candidate, but a sure good percentage of them did. You know how we know? Because in 2024, each of those races, House District 19, House District 50, and Congressional District 8, all pledged to support pro-liberty policy positions if elected, and no libertarian ran against them, and they won. Dan Woog, Ryan Gonzalez, and now Gabe Evans all won their races because they built a connection with pro-liberty Coloradans who are sick and tired of seeing our rights taken away by the Democratic majority. It worked. The Liberty Pledge transformed Colorado politics, and it's an incredibly powerful tool. So think about this. Republicans in our state legislature this last year in 2024 picked up 3 state house seats, right? That was the Dan Woog, Ryan Gonzalez, and Rebecca Kelty. Rebecca Kelty also signed the pledge. She won by 3 votes, for heaven's sakes. I guarantee you if a libertarian was in that race, she would have lost. And oh my gosh, we would have had Stephanie Vigil, one of the worst ones we've seen, back down there. Taking away the Democrat supermajority. That's some of the fruits of the labor of everybody who worked so hard to get this pledge implemented. Now, why is that important? If you don't know how the state legislature works, you might be wondering, why is a supermajority so important? Well, a supermajority can override a gubernatorial veto. That was big this year. Jared Polis vetoed 2 bills that the state legislature thought about overriding with a 2/3 vote, but because they did not have the supermajority, the state house, the House Republicans, were unwilling to override Governor Polis's veto on Senate Bill 86. Senate Bill 86 was a social media control bill, a censorship bill, a bill to monitor and permanently deplatform people at the request of the Attorney General, forcing social media companies to permanently ban people from their platforms if they were doing things that were illegal, including talking about circumventing Colorado's horrible gun control laws. You know, we do not want the state to have that kind of power. And because of the Liberty Pledge, we were able to stop that, truly, right? The supermajority, if it can also refer a constitutional amendment to the ballot. We saw that in years past, but now that Democrats don't have a supermajority, they are not able to refer constitutional amendments to voters. Could you imagine the infringements we could get on our constitutional rights if they kept doing that? The reality, folks, is the lack of a Democratic supermajority meant that the governor's overrides cannot be overturned. And that is huge. That is huge. You know, not to belabor the point too much, it's towards the bottom of my slides here, but really talking about the biggest win of the 2024 legislative session here was stopping Senate Bill 86, and definitely did it right here. So we can see, you know, RMGO jumped to the action here. Rally for Our Rights, the Libertarian Party, myself, everybody was pushing this. And I can tell you, the idea that a libertarian was going to run against all the Republicans who supported this horrible bill changed their minds. I'm sure it did, you know, so that's huge right there. So now think about it this way. If the Libertarian Party new leadership here just says, you know, the pledge doesn't matter, it's not important. So if I'm a Republican or part of the Republican Party, for example, or a Republican candidate for office, and you say you're going to oppose me no matter what, even if I'm the most pro-liberty, Ron Paul, Thomas Massey type of guy, and you're going to run against me no matter what, well then I don't have any incentive, no ability at all, no care to talk to you, to work with you, to try and work together to increase our freedom. Because I can tell you, Representative Ryan Gonzalez, Dan Woog, Rebecca Kelty, the ones that got through, they pushed some of the most pro-liberty legislation we saw this last year in 2024. And if they weren't there, nobody else would have been pushing it. So tell me this, if I'm a Republican and you say you're Mr. Libertarian, you're not going to work with me at all, you're going to have somebody oppose me, then, well, why should I work with you? Right? If you have nothing to offer, why should I work with you? That's the reality of politics, folks. That's how it goes. That's it. But let's look at some of the good pro-liberty bills that were introduced in 2025. Don't want to spend too much time on that, But just to give you some ideas here, we had some great bills that were released, like from Representative Ken DeGraff, who said the pro-liberty pledge, who wants to basically eliminate civil asset forfeiture in Colorado, turn it into something called criminal asset forfeiture, where criminal conviction be required before giving up your property. Awesome bill. Of course, Democrats killed it. Representative Brandy Bradley, a true fighter, trying to make sure that child rapists stayed in jail, and Democrats actually killed that bill. Crazy, right? You had Mark Baisley, the most pro-liberty senator we have, who was going to basically reduce all these costs, including the grocery tax, grocery bag tax, all these utility bill fees that they charge us, all of that. I testified on government transparency bills. You had Representative Ryan Gonzalez supporting the bill to eliminate the cage-free egg law to return some food freedom here to Colorado, repealing the recycled paper carryout bag fee. That was Representative Ryan Gonzalez as well. The Tamale Act, expanding Colorado Cottage Food Acts. I mean, we had some good stuff, right? Some really good stuff. There's a lot of things that could have happened if we have more pro-liberty legislators elected. I mean, that's the reality of it, folks. We need pro-liberty legislators elected, and some of the champions are there because of the pledge. So think of it this way. With the Liberty Pledge, what do Republicans get? They can get elected, right? Because they're going to have less opposition. That's huge, right? That's why they're doing this. They're running for office to get elected. What do libertarians get? Well, pro-liberty policy. Is that what we want? Isn't that the goal? Is to have this support any measure, anything that's going to improve the quality of our lives in terms of our freedom, letting us have more of our own money, being able to secure our rights of self-defense, to protect our families, our homes. That's what we want. And the leverage that the Libertarian Party has with the pledge is the threat of a libertarian opponent if you aren't pro-liberty enough. You know, I can tell you these legislators down at the Capitol, they want to be pro-liberty because they know the libertarians will run somebody against them if they aren't. But if the flip side is always true, where they say, well, they're going to run somebody against me no matter what, well, you know, then it is what it is. I don't need to care. And that's just the reality of it, folks. So, you know, some people were saying out there, does the pledge only help Republicans? Does it only help Republicans? You know, we had this article here from the Colorado Times Recorder, which, in my opinion, and the opinion of many others that I know, is really not a news organization. It's just a front for the far left Democrats to really try and get their talking points out there. But this is from that little article here. Another point of contention within the Libertarian caucus was the Liberty Pledge, which Hannah Goodman, previous chair, and her allies launched over a year prior to the 2024 election. The pledge was a set of commitments that it expected Republican candidates to sign in order to prevent a Libertarian from entering the race. Okay, so huge stuff there. We talked about that. Here's what the new guy says here. This is the new chair of the Libertarian Party of Colorado. Quote, we're going to look at that Liberty Pledge in detail and see how that was implemented. It started in 2024, so it really just had one election cycle. But a lot of members were turned off by that because it showed that we're supporting candidates from other political parties. Ideally, we want candidates in every race. Why? I don't know. That's my thought. So that's one of the first goals we have, is to get out there and find people interested in running. I think it really goes against our party principles, Lave said. We're libertarians. We have our ideas. We might have some things in common with Republicans. We have some things in common with the Democrat Party, but overall we are pretty principled. We want to stick to what we believe in. You know, you can have all the principles you want, but if nothing's actually changing on the political level, then it is what it is. But a lot of people think, they say, oh, well, this pledge is only helping Republicans. But that's not true at all. It helps libertarians. It helps the Libertarian Party actually have a voice, have political power, to be able to exercise political power to say, hey, Republican candidate, if you're pro-liberty, you know, maybe we'll do what we can to not get in your way. If you're not pro-liberty, then heck, gloves are off. We're coming after you. So if you want to see Colorado become a free state, the Libertarian Party of Colorado should be trying to expand the Liberty Pledge to appeal to Democrats, to appeal to more candidates. Have the Libertarian Party use their ability to get candidates on the ballot to leverage other parties, other people who are actually serving in state government to support pro-liberty positions and get pro-liberty policy passed. That's why we're doing this, because we want a free state, not just to talk about it and discuss it and, you know, have people run for office with no chance of winning. What are we doing there? We're seeing what we're doing. We're seeing all the terrible legislation come through on the other side. So that's my message today. Really appreciate you joining me. I know this video wasn't for everybody, but I got more stuff coming, some really good interviews lined up. So check back soon. We'll talk to you later.